The Dhammapada is from the Sutta Pitaka and is found in the Khuddaka Nikaya. The author of these verses is unknown, although they are believed to be the teachings of the Buddha himself. The text of the Dhammapada was established by the time of the great Buddhist Emperor Ashoka in the 3rd century BC. Dhammapada, Path of Truth. 1. The Twin Verses. What we are is the result of what we have thought, is built by our thoughts, is made up of our thoughts. If one speaks or acts with an impure thought, suffering follows one, like the wheel of the cart follows the foot of the ox. What we are is the result of what we have thought, is built by our thoughts, is made up of our thoughts. If one speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows one, like a shadow that never leaves. They insulted me, they hurt me, they defeated me, they cheated me. In those who harbor such thoughts, hate will never cease. They insulted me, they hurt me, they defeated me, they cheated me. For those who do not harbor such thoughts, hate will cease. For hate is never conquered by hate. Hate is conquered by love. This is an eternal law. Many do not realize that we must all come to an end here, but those who do realize this end their quarrels at once. Whoever lives only for pleasures, with senses uncontrolled, immoderate in eating, lazy and weak, will be overthrown by Mara like the wind throws down a weak tree. Whoever lives not for pleasures, with senses well controlled, moderate in eating, has faith and the power of virtue, will not be overthrown by Mara, any more than the wind throws down a rocky mountain. Whoever would put on the yellow robe without having cleansed oneself from impurity, disregarding self-control and truth, is not deserving of the yellow robe. But whoever has cleansed oneself from impurity is well grounded in all the virtues, and is possessed of self-control and truth, is deserving of the yellow robe. Those who imagine truth in untruth, and see untruth in truth, never arrive at truth, but follow vain desires. Those who know truth as truth, and untruth as untruth, arrive at truth, and follow true desires. As rain makes its way into a badly roofed house, so passion makes its way into an unreflecting mind. As rain does not make its way into a well-roofed house, so passion does not make its way into a reflecting mind. Wrongdoers grieve in this world, and they grieve in the next. They grieve in both. They grieve and are afflicted when they see the wrong they have done. The virtuous find joy in this world, and they find joy in the next. They find joy in both. They find joy and are glad when they see the good they have done. Wrongdoers suffer in this world, and they suffer in the next. They suffer in both. They suffer when they think of the wrong they have done. They suffer even more when going on the wrong path. The virtuous are happy in this world, and they are happy in the next. They are happy in both. They are happy when they think of the good they have done. They are even happier when going on the good path. Even if the thoughtless can recite many of the scriptures, if they do not act accordingly, they are not living the holy life, but are like a cowherd counting the cows of others. Even if the faithful can recite only a few of the scriptures, if they act accordingly, having given up passion, hate, and folly, being possessed of true knowledge and serenity of mind, craving nothing in this world or the next, they are living the holy life. 2. Awareness. Awareness is the path of immortality. Thoughtlessness is the path of death. Those who are aware do not die. The thoughtless are as if dead already. The wise, having clearly understood this, delight in awareness and find joy in the knowledge of the noble ones. These wise ones, meditative, persevering, always using strong effort, attain nirvana, the supreme peace and happiness. If a person is awake, aware, mindful, pure, considerate, self-restrained, and lives according to duty, that person's glory will increase. By awakening, by awareness, by restraint and control, the wise may make for oneself an island which no flood can overwhelm. Fools follow after vanity, are ignorant and careless. The wise keep awareness as their best treasure. Do not follow after vanity, nor after sensual pleasure nor lust. Whoever meditates with awareness obtains great joy. When the wise conquer thoughtlessness by awareness, climbing the terraced heights of wisdom, free from sadness, viewing the sad crowd below, they gaze upon the fools, like one on the mountain peak gazes upon those standing on the plain. Aware among the thoughtless, awake among the sleepy, the wise advances, like a racehorse leaves behind the slow. By awareness, Indra rose to become chief of the gods. People praise awareness. Thoughtlessness is always blamed. A mendicant who finds joy in awareness, who looks with fear on thoughtlessness, moves about like fire, burning all restrictions, small or large. A mendicant who finds joy in awareness, who looks with fear on thoughtlessness, cannot fall away, but is close to nirvana. 3. Thought. As fletchers make their arrows straight, the wise make straight their wavering and unsteady thought, which is difficult to guard and difficult to restrain. Like a fish taken from its watery home and thrown on dry ground, our thought quivers all over in order to escape the dominion of Mara. It is good to control the mind, which is difficult to restrain, fickle and wandering. A tamed mind brings happiness. Let the wise guard their thoughts, which are difficult to perceive, tricky and wandering. Thoughts well guarded bring happiness. Those who restrain their mind, which travels far alone without a body, hiding in a cave, will be free from the restrictions of death. If a person's mind is unsteady, if it does not know the true path, if one's peace of mind is troubled, wisdom is not perfected. There is no fear for the one whose thought is untroubled, whose mind is not confused, who has ceased to think of good and bad, who is aware. Knowing that this body is like a jar, and making one's thought strong as a fortress, attack Mara with the weapon of wisdom. Protect what is conquered, and stay always aware. Before long, unfortunately, this body will lie on the earth, rejected without consciousness, like a useless log. Whatever an enemy may do to an enemy, or a hater to a hater, a wrongly directed mind will do greater harm. Neither a mother nor a father nor any other relative will do so much. A well-directed mind will do us greater service. 4. Flowers. Who shall conquer this world and the world of death and the gods? Who shall find the clear path of truth as a skillful person finds the flower? The wise student will conquer this world and the world of death and the gods. The wise student will find the clear path of truth as a skillful person finds the flower. Whoever knows that this body is like foam, and has learned that its nature is a mirage, will break the flourishing arrows of Mara, and never see the king of death. Death carries off a person who is gathering flowers, whose mind is distracted, like a flood carries off a sleeping village. Death terminates a person who is gathering flowers, whose mind is distracted, before one is even satiated in pleasures. As the bee collects nectar and departs without harming the flower or its color or scent, so let the sage live in a village. Not the faults of others, nor their errors of commission or omission, but one's own errors and omissions should the sage consider. Like a beautiful flower full of color but without scent are the fine but fruitless words of those who do not act accordingly. But like a beautiful flower full of color and full of scent are the fine and fruitful words of those who do act accordingly. As many kinds of garlands can be made from a heap of flowers, so many good works may be achieved by a mortal after birth. The scent of flowers does not travel against the wind, not even that of sandalwood, rosebay, or jasmine. But the fragrance of good people travels even against the wind. A good person pervades everywhere. Sandalwood or rosebay or lotus or jasmine, among these perfumes, the perfume of virtue is unsurpassed. Limited is the scent of rosebay or sandalwood, but the perfume of the virtuous rises up to the gods as the highest. Mara never crosses the path of those who are virtuous, who live without thoughtlessness, and who are liberated by true knowledge. Just as on a heap of rubbish thrown upon the highway the lotus will grow sweetly fragrant, delighting the soul, so also among those who are like rubbish, the wise student of the truly enlightened Buddha shines brightly with wisdom above the blinded crowd. 5. The Fool. Long is the night to one who is awake. Long is 10 miles to one who is tired. Long is the cycle of birth and death to the fool who does not know the true path. If a traveler does not meet with one who is better or equal, let one firmly travel alone. There is no companionship with a fool. These sons belong to me, and this wealth belongs to me. With such thoughts a fool is tormented. One does not belong to oneself, how much less sons and wealth? The fool who knows one's own folly is wise at least to that extent, but the fool who thinks oneself wise is really a fool. If a fool is associated with a wise person all one's life, the fool will not perceive the truth any more than a spoon will taste the soup. If an intelligent person is associated with a wise person for only 1 minute, one will soon perceive the truth, just as the tongue does the taste of soup. Fools of little understanding are their own worst enemies, for they do wrong deeds which bear bitter fruits. That action is not well done which having been done brings remorse, whose result one receives crying with tears. But that action is well done which having been done does not bring remorse, whose result one receives gladly and cheerfully. As long as the wrong action does not bear fruit, the fool thinks it is like honey, but when it bears fruit, then the fool suffers grief. Let a fool month after month eat food with the tip of kusha grass. Nevertheless, one is not worth 1/16 of those who have understood the truth. A wrong action, like newly drawn milk, does not turn soon. Smoldering like fire covered by ashes, it follows the fool. When the wrong action, after it has become known, turns to sorrow for the fool, then it destroys one's brightness and splits the head. Let the fool wish for reputation, for precedence among the mendicants, for authority in the convents, for veneration among the people. Let both the householders and the mendicants think that this is done by me. Let them always ask me, what should be done and what should not be done. Such is the wish of the fool of increasing desire and pride. One road leads to wealth, another road leads to nirvana. Let the mendicant, the disciple of Buddha, learn this, and not strive for honor, but seek wisdom. 6. The wise. If you see a wise person who shows you your faults, who shows what is to be avoided, follow that wise person as you would one who reveals hidden treasures. You will be better, not worse, for following that one. Let one admonish, let one teach, let one forbid the wrong, and one will be loved by the good and hated by the bad. Do not have wrongdoers for friends. Do not have despicable people for friends. Have virtuous people for friends. Have for friends the best people. Whoever drinks in the truth lives happily with a serene mind. The wise are joyful in the truth revealed by the noble ones. Engineers of canals guide the water. Fletchers make the arrow straight. Carpenters shape the wood. The wise mold themselves. As a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not shaken by blame and praise. As a deep lake is clear and calm, so the wise become tranquil after they listen to the truth. Good people walk on regardless of what happens to them. Good people do not babble on about their desires. Whether touched by happiness or by sorrow, the wise never appear elated or depressed. Whoever for one's sake or for another's does not wish for a son or wealth or power, and if one does not wish for success by unfair means, that one certainly is virtuous, wise, and holy. Few are those people who reach the farther shore. The other people here run along this shore. But those who, when the truth has been taught to them, follow the truth, will pass over the dominion of death, however difficult to cross. Leaving behind the path of darkness and following the path of light, let the wise person go from home to a homeless state, in retirement looking for enjoyment where enjoyment seemed difficult. Letting go of all pleasures, calling nothing one's own, let the wise cleanse oneself from all the troubles of the mind. Those whose minds are well grounded in the elements of enlightenment, who without clinging to anything find joy and freedom from attachment, whose appetites have been conquered, and who are full of light, they are free in this world. 7. The Saint. There is no suffering for the one who has completed the journey, who is freed from sorrow, who has freed oneself on all sides, who has thrown off all chains. The thoughtful exert themselves. They do not delight in a home. Like swans who have left their lake, they leave their house and home. Those who have no accumulations, who eat properly, who have perceived release and unconditioned freedom, their path is difficult to understand, like that of birds in the sky. Those whose passions are stilled, who are indifferent to pleasure, who have perceived release and unconditioned freedom, their path is difficult to understand, like that of birds in the sky. Even the gods admire one whose senses are controlled, like horses well tamed by the driver, who is free from pride and free from appetites. Such a dutiful one who is tolerant like the earth, who is firm like a pillar, who is like a lake without mud. No new births are in store for this one. One's thought is calm. Calm is one's word and one's action when one has obtained freedom by true knowledge and become peaceful. The one who is free from gullibility, who knows the uncreated, who has severed all ties, removed all temptations, renounced all desires, is the greatest of people. In a village or in a forest, in a valley or on the hills, wherever saints live, that is a place of joy. Forests are delightful. Where others find no joy, there the desireless will find joy, for they do not seek the pleasures of the senses. 8. The thousands. Better than 1,000 meaningless words is one sensible word, if hearing it one becomes peaceful. Better than 1,000 meaningless verses is one word of verse, if hearing it one becomes peaceful. Better than reciting 100 verses of meaningless words is one poem, if hearing it one becomes peaceful. If a person were to conquer in battle 1,000 times 1,000 people, if another conquers oneself, that one is the greatest conqueror. Conquering oneself is better than conquering other people. Not even a god, a spirit, nor Mara with Brahma could turn into a defeat the victory of one who always practices the discipline of self-control. If a person, month after month for 100 years, should sacrifice with 1,000 offerings, and if but for one moment that person paid reverence to one whose soul is grounded in knowledge, better is that reverence than 100 years of sacrifices. If a person for 100 years should worship Agni in the forest, and if but for one moment that person paid reverence to one whose soul is grounded in knowledge, better is that reverence than 100 years of worship. Whatever a person sacrifices in this world as an offering or as an oblation for a whole year in order to gain merit, the whole of it is not worth a quarter. Reverence shown to the virtuous is better. To the one who always reveres and respects the aged, 4 things increase: life, health, happiness, and power. Better than 100 years lived in vice and unrestrained is living one day if a person is virtuous and contemplative. Better than 100 years lived in ignorance and unrestrained is living one day if a person is wise and contemplative. Better than 100 years lived in idleness and weakness is living one day if a person courageously makes effort. Better than 100 years of not perceiving how things arise and pass away is living one day if a person does perceive how things arise and pass away. Better than 100 years of not perceiving immortality is living one day if a person does perceive immortality. Better than 100 years of not seeing the supreme path is living one day if a person does see the supreme path. 9. Good and bad. A person should hurry toward the good, and restrain one's thoughts from the bad. If a person is slow in doing good, one's mind will find pleasure in wrong. If a person does what is wrong, let one not do it again. Let one not find pleasure in wrong. Painful is the accumulation of bad conduct. If a person does what is good, let one do it again. Let one find joy in it. Happiness is the result of good conduct. Even a wrongdoer sees happiness as long as one's wrong action does not ripen. But when the wrong action has ripened, then does the wrongdoer see bad. Even a good person sees bad as long as one's good action does not ripen. But when one's good action has ripened, then the good person sees the good. Let no one underestimate evil, thinking, "It will not come near me." Even a water pot is filled by the falling of drops of water. A fool becomes full of evil even if one gathers it little by little. Let no one underestimate good, thinking, "It will not come near me." Even a water pot is filled by the falling of drops of water. A wise person becomes full of goodness even if one gathers it little by little. Let a person avoid wrong actions as a merchant who has few companions and carries much wealth avoids a dangerous road, as a person who loves life avoids poison. Whoever has no wound on one's hand may touch poison with that hand. Poison does not affect one who has no wound, nor does evil one who does no wrong. Whoever does wrong to an innocent person or to one who is pure and harmless, the wrong returns to that fool, just like fine dust thrown against the wind. Some people are born again in the womb. Wrongdoers go to hell. The good go to heaven. Those free from worldly desires attain nirvana. Neither in the sky nor in the middle of the ocean, nor by entering the caves of mountains, is there known a place on earth where a person can escape from a wrong action. Neither in the sky nor in the middle of the ocean, nor by entering the caves of mountains, is there known a place on earth where a person can escape from death.